I do have the mayor's report that I would like to provide for the period of March 8th through the 21st, 2011 as follows. On March 16th, I was pleased to extend greetings at the Burntwood Regional Health Authority Northern Health Conference held in Thompson and hosted by the BRHA and MKO. I want to thank the host for selecting Thompson as the site for the conference, as well as thank all those who participated from throughout northern Manitoba. I'll note that this conference attracted a large number of delegates from throughout the north and from all types of communities in the north. I also want to thank and acknowledge Councillor Locker, who attended the conference on behalf of the City of Thompson. Also on March 16th, I was pleased to attend the Thompson Chamber of Commerce regular meeting and the presentation by Minister Steve Ashton on University College of the North. Later that evening, representatives from Minister Ashton's department, Manitoba Infrastructure and Transportation, made a presentation to members of City Council regarding the project. As well, on Thursday, March 17th, MIT and UCN hosted a number of open house presentations here at City Hall, and I was very pleased to see a strong and positive response to the community. I think we were all a little surprised by the number of people that attended the open houses, but I think that speaks very well of our community for getting engaged and expressing interest in the project. On March 17th, along with Deputy Mayor Lafreniere and Councillor Stewart, now Hogan, I met with representatives from the UAS program, the Urban Aboriginal Strategy Program. I conveyed the appreciation and support of the City of Thompson for the program and expressed my hope and desire to see the program renewed upon the end of the current agreement in 2012, I believe. And I can further follow up that I had an opportunity to speak with Minister Tays about the Urban Aboriginal Strategy and conveyed my hope that the federal government will look to a continuation of the program, and he was very supportive. That leads into March 18th, which was a very busy day in Thompson, with Federal Minister Vic Tays visiting to make a number of announcements. In the morning, I joined Minister Tays and Provincial Minister Peter Bjornson at City Hall for the announcement of BizPel in our community. Nicely timed with the new website that we'll be putting up. This will enable local entrepreneurs and business people to access government information at all levels in terms of looking at making the permitting process, the zoning process, all those things much easier for business to look at getting started. Throughout the day, announcements were also made at MKO, which I attended, the homeless shelter, which I also attended, and I'll note that I was joined by Deputy Mayor Lafreniere and other members of council, including Councillor Hogan, at those announcements. And the final announcement was made at Juniper Centre, and I want to thank Deputy Mayor Lafreniere for attending that on my behalf, as I was unable to do so. I also had an opportunity to have a private meeting in the morning with Minister Tays, and I want to acknowledge his role in addressing the Valley announcement from a federal perspective, which I thanked him for during our conversations. He has remained very active and involved, and I can advise was the only federal minister when Mr. Nichiporic from the United Steelworkers and I traveled to Toronto on the first occasion that made time in his schedule to see us in Ottawa. And we followed up with the following meeting, and I know he's played a very active role with the Minister of Mines, Minister Chomniak, here in Manitoba. So I did thank him, and I also thanked him for his interest in our community in northern Manitoba. In terms of upcoming events, spring is here, and I encourage residents to get out and get active in our community. For information regarding programs and activities, I encourage people to call the Recreation Department at 677-7951 or 7954 if they want direct access to the boss, or visit rec411.ca for any information regarding any of the programs. Another upcoming event that might not be shared with as much enthusiasm is the first utility invoice for the water utility will be mailed out next week. It will reflect the fixed component of the water utility for the period of January through March of 2011. You will be receiving later on in April the invoice for the actual amount that was incurred in terms of consumption for that same period. We advance bill the fixed component, is my understanding, Ms. Taylor, as per the approval of the Public Utility Board. You will be receiving a copy of a bill as well as a letter from the city advising that should residents want to find out the actual consumption that they've had since the installation or the start of our meeting, which I believe was in around January the 4th, they can call the utility office and they can get that information so they can start to adjust consumption. On that note, I want to note that, and I think we're going to be bringing this forward for the information of the public, consumption of water has seen a drastic decrease in the community over the last 2.5 months. I think that speaks volumes in terms of people looking and conserving and looking at the implementation of the utility. So the invoices will be there, and I believe a presentation will be forthcoming on the consumption of water in our community, which I think we should all be celebrating. In terms of other notes, I just want to advise that people will have noticed that construction has started at the Thompson Regional Community Center, and despite Minister Ashton and Mr. Pollack having sledgehammers along with me at the announcement, we put that equipment away and we're using much larger equipment on the site now, and it is making a big difference. However, the facility is still being used for events, and I want to urge caution for those people that are attending on the site. It is a construction site. We have asked our administration to ensure proper and significant signage, walkways, pathways, parking areas, but we do ask the public to be cautious on the site. I also have a media release that I would like to provide for the information of the public, and this was received today from the RCMP, and it's the RCMP requesting the public's assistance in a homicide investigation. Thompson RCMP as well as RCMP Serious Crimes Unit continue to investigate homicide that took place on March 20th at about 3:15 a.m. and are requesting the public's assistance in locating 3 suspects. On March 20th, 2011 at about 3 a.m. the witness reported an altercation near the South Tower at the Princeton Towers Apartments in Thompson. 3 males were seen fleeing the scene on foot in a southeast direction of Ashbury Place. They are described as wearing dark clothing. One was reported to be heavy-set with dark curly hair. RCM requests that anyone with information regarding this homicide or these individuals contact the Thompson RCMP at 677-6909. The deceased has been identified as a 16-year-old male resident of Thompson, Manitoba. His name is not being released at this time. I provide that for the information of the public, and I urge the public to come forward should they have any information. Any community is only as strong as its residents believe and actively participate in the safety and the sense of community. So I look forward and I request that anyone that may have information, please contact the RCMP. In terms of proclamations, a reminder by the virtue of the authority vested in me as mayor of the city of Thompson, I have proclaimed the month of March 2011 as Dimes of Hope Month in the city of Thompson. And just prior to going to any other members of council in terms of some of the events that have been attended, as I know during that period I was out of the city on related business, but well, perhaps I'll go there first. Is there any other information members of council want to share with respect to that period? Deputy Mayor Lafreniere.
Thank you. I had the opportunity on March 8th to attend International Women's Day. It was hosted by the YWCA and the Crisis Center, and it was noting or marking the 100th anniversary of International Women's Day. And there was a group of women at the dining area of the Y citing challenges and successes, and I just think it's important to think back 100 years ago and the issues that women were facing. And it's quite, I think, a success story to look at this table. And, you know, 100 years ago, women didn't have the right to vote everywhere in Canada. And we're still at the beginning of that movement. And to see less than 100 years later, the majority of council being women in Thompson, Manitoba, I think is something to definitely celebrate and to share with the world. And that is what we did on March 8th, sharing our stories and our successes. And I did just want to take one opportunity to raise the issue. I sit at the council table often and remind people about using gender-neutral language and language that is respectful of all genders. And I don't do that just to be a pain in people's side, but I do that for the advancement of women, and especially young women in our community. And that it's really about equity, and it comes from a place of human rights, not a place of being better or worse as men and women, but just a place from a human rights lens. And I wanted to share that. And it's days like International Women's Day that remind you about the importance of that. So, yes, thank you.
Thank you. Any other members of council wish to share any activities they participated in on behalf of council? Thank you. I'm going to be open to questions, comments, but on behalf of council, as I indicated, we have a councillor with a new name following a wedding. And I do want to, on behalf of council members, extend congratulations and our best wishes and convey to you, Aaron and Tyler. You have to share it too. A small token of our appreciation and that. And it's nothing to do with the Rangers, although I'm still trying to convert the Leaf fans, but all the best.
It won't work.
With that, I'd ask if there's any comments or questions with respect to the mayor's report. I will entertain a motion to adjourn.